Hello and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started with today's show, please hit that subscribe button below. It helps us out a lot, and you'll stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. You can also check out additional information on our website, Instagram, and Facebook. All those links are below. So today on Discovering True Health, we are going to be learning about a specific gut health issue called SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacteria overgrowth that has a reputation for being massively underdiagnosed. Now, research shows that it affects at least 6 to 15% of healthy asymptomatic people, and SIBO is also actually a symptom of an underlying cause. So today we'll be learning all about causes, symptoms, and testing, as well as the phases of treatment and natural supplements that can help. So my guest joining me today is Dr. Onyx Adegbola, a lifestyle medicine physician and scientist and former pharmaceutical executive. She's founder of Casa de Sante, a digital gut health platform which provides gut-friendly low FODMAP products, supplements, and resources for gastrointestinal conditions such as IBS, IBD, SIBO, and more. So thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Onyx.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, you received your Ph.D. from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and have over 10 years of experience as a former pharmaceutical executive. Now, can you share with us kind of what the catalyst was for you to create Casa de Sante, and what are some of the important things you learned along the way about gut health specifically?
Sure. So, like you said, I was a former pharmaceutical executive. Spent a lot of time over the years getting a number of drugs for different specialties into the market. And when I took some time off after having my kids, I have triplets. I was looking for the next step, and in the process, I found my brother had IBS, and he was on the low FODMAP diet. And I was trying to help him to manage his IBS, and during that time, I found out that there were actually not a lot of products and resources for people with IBS or SIBO that are on the low FODMAP diet. So that was a few years ago, and so I started Casa de Sante to provide products and resources for people with IBS and SIBO that are on the low FODMAP diet.
Yeah.
And yeah. So during the journey, I've learned a lot of things. I think, one of the most important things I learned is that people with IBS and SIBO have debilitating symptoms that significantly interfere with their quality of life. It's not often talked about out there. I guess people are not comfortable talking about poop and, having issues with their stomach and noises and pain and stuff like that. And so it doesn't always get the attention that it deserves. And I know, being in the medical community, I didn't even know how debilitating these SIBO IBS could be to the patients. And so so that's why after Casa de Sante, we provided products and resources to people with IBS and SIBO on the low FODMAP diet. And now we've taken it a step further to start an integrated virtual IBS clinic for people who are on the low FODMAP diet or with IBS or SIBO and who need additional help and personalized care.
Beautiful. And thank you for creating all this, because I didn't know about SIBO until a dear friend of mine had, she started experiencing it. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And like you said, it's not spoken about and it's not as known, especially mainstream doctors, unless you kind of more specialize in gut health. It's not as known about. And it's hard to find the low FODMAP products that are healthy with no preservatives and no chemicals. And you have this incredible line, which we'll talk about later in the show as well. But let's get into SIBO. I feel like it's not as known as other gut issues like IBM. So What is SIBO? What are the symptoms that we should look out for?
Sure. So you're right. It's not as well known as other gut issues. And SIBO is short for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And what happens is that you have buildup of sorry, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Buildup of bad bacteria in the intestines, and which the bad bacteria disrupts the natural balance of the gut microbiome. So when you have too much of these bad bacteria, it limits nutrient absorption because it competes with the body for absorption of nutrients, and then you result in uncomfortable symptoms like abdominal pain. The bacteria release gas that causes bloating. You get indigestion, constipation. The people with SIBO have diarrhea, and of course, with the gas, they have a lot of flatulence and passing a lot of gas. So it's actually probably more common than we think because it's relatively underdiagnosed, and a lot of people have some of these issues, and they just say, okay, well, I just had a bad day, bad meal, and that's it, and they don't think about it. So that's one of the reasons why SIBO is not as well known as other gut issues.
Right. And at what point like you said, these symptoms kind of mimic a lot of other types of issues. That's why maybe it's such a confusion of that it's specifically SIBO, and a lot of people might think, oh, well, it was just a bad day, a bad week. At what point should somebody be concerned and go get testing?
Well, if you keep getting, symptoms regularly and it's an ongoing problem, I think, and it's maybe impacting your quality of life, that's definitely a time that you should get tested. And, not only because it could be SIBO, but also because it could be something else. So you just want to make sure that that's, you see a clinician and that's assessed.
Right. Now, one of the symptoms of SIBO can be brain fog. How is brain fog linked to a gut issue like SIBO?
Well, so that's a fantastic point to make. The thing is, there's a connection between the gut and the brain, and that's known as the gut-brain axis. And studies have shown that, several SIBO patients do have brain fogginess along with the gas, the bloating, and the abdominal pain symptoms that they have. And one reason of this is because of imbalances in the gut microbiome. So while we don't, completely know why it happens, but this imbalances in the gut microbiome that causes SIBO also causes unexplained brain fog, headaches, and fatigue.
Got it. Yeah, it's important to understand this connection. On your website, you have a really great write-up on this that everybody can go check out. I'll post a link to that below too, so everybody can check it out. But to understand that more, it's so important to really get that, because if our gut's unhealthy, that can affect our brains.
Exactly.
Now, SIBO is actually a symptom of an underlying condition or cause. So what types of things could possibly be a root cause of SIBO?
Yeah, that's something that's really important to find the root cause of SIBO, because if you just treat the symptoms, the symptoms might go away, but it could come back. So treating the root cause is very important, and finding out what it is and treating it. So SIBO can be a complication of after certain surgeries, such as a gastrectomy, or for treating ulcers and stomach cancers, or a gastric bypass to treat obesity, because when you do that, you could have you have a sort of a pouch where the bacteria can multiply and cause an imbalance in the gut biome. Another cause is low motility, which is also a situation that can allow the bacteria to just multiply. So cause an imbalance in the gut biome. So when you have low motility of the gut, which means the intestinal muscles are not contracting and relaxing and pushing food and bacteria into the down the digestive tract, and this pushing mechanism slows down, and then you have the overgrowth of the microbes, and then it leads to imbalances, fermentation of food, and then you start getting all the symptoms of SIBO. Another cause of SIBO is having low levels of stomach acids, because again, if you have low level of stomach acids, you're not killing the bacteria, and then they're multiplying, they're proliferating, multiplying more than they should, and then again you get an imbalance of of the gut microbiome, which will lead to SIBO. Alcohol abuse is another reason somebody could develop SIBO. Excessive consumption of alcoholic beverages can result in damage to the intestinal wall and disrupt the natural gut flora. So the one thing that is sort of the thread in all these causes of SIBO is having a situation where you have proliferation of the gut microbiome and imbalance, which results in imbalance of the gut microbiome.
Got it. So it's important to, like you were saying, if somebody is diagnosed with SIBO, you can't just be treated and kill that bacteria because it's a bacterial overgrowth. You need to actually go the step further and figure out what the underlying issue is.
Exactly. Finding the root cause is very important so that there's no recurrence. And it's quite a few patients recur just because they're just treated and the root cause is not addressed.
Right. And now, how is SIBO diagnosed?
So there are many ways to diagnose it. The first thing you start off with is getting the history and understanding the symptoms of the patient and having a high index of suspicion. Now, one thing that's important to note in the medical history is that the patient doesn't have what we would call alarm symptoms, such as unexplained loss of weight, bleeding in the stool, and things that would make you concerned, age, family history, things that would make you concerned that it could be something more serious going on. And so you might want to do some more testing. But if testing, like do things like colonoscopy or and stuff like that, if it's not clear that it's really SIBO. Now, if there's a high index of suspicion that the patient has SIBO, the test that you could do are the hydrogen breath test, which is the most common test used to diagnose SIBO. It's fairly simple because it's non-invasive. It can be conducted in either at home or in the doctor's office. You're given a number of instructions before taking the test, such as overnight fasting. And then on the day of the test, you're given a sweet drink, and then you breathe into tubes at regular intervals after 2 to 3 hours. So what happens is the test will then measure the amount of hydrogen and methane gases in your breath, because if you have SIBO and you have an over proliferation of gut bacteria, excessive amounts of these gases will be produced, and so that is a sign that you have bacterial overgrowth. So this is the most common test, but it's not that necessarily that sensitive. So not all patients with SIBO would actually have a hydrogen breath test. So the gold standard of detecting SIBO is actually a small intestine aspirate and culture test. Now, this is more invasive, a little bit more complicated than just breathing out gas and measure, looking at the gases that you breathe out, because in this case, the doctor passes a long flexible tube called an endoscope into the intestine and gets a sample of the intestinal fluid, which is then checked in the laboratory to analyze the number of bacteria present in the intestine. So those are the main tests for diagnosing SIBO. There's some more experimental and not as widely used tests out there, but these are the main tests that are out there in the market for SIBO.
Interesting, a breath test. So now, once somebody takes one of these and it's confirmed they do have SIBO, and you said there's specific underlying causes. So when you work with somebody, once they're confirmed they have SIBO, then do you kind of have a checklist of other testing for each underlying cause to figure out what the underlying cause is?
Yes. A lot of times you could get the underlying cause from the history, but if you need to dig deeper, you could do additional testing. But something like if the patient has had a abdominal surgery, certain surgeries, that's certainly a possibility. If the patient is alcoholic, that could be the cause. And so a lot of the causes can be gotten through a history, and sometimes additional testing might be required, like stool testing and whatnot. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. And can you explain now, there are phases of SIBO treatment. Can you kind of explain what the phases are and what we need to know about the treatment process?
Sure. So the one thing that, there's a threefold it's a threefold process. The first thing is to correct the underlying cause of SIBO, which you could find by history and additional testing if necessary. So and that could include diet, necessary medical and surgical therapies if needed. And then you would treat the overgrowth with the help of antibiotics. And there are different types of antibiotics which you could use to treat the patients, and we can go into detail on that later if you want to. And then it's also important to give the patients nutritional support, because a lot of patients with SIBO have issues with absorbing vitamin B. So it might be B12, for example. So it might be necessary to give them vitamin B12 and maybe folate, because they're competing with their body. They're not absorbing nutrients properly, and the bacteria are competing with their body for certain nutrients. And it's also also the dietary therapies like the low FODMAP diet is often prescribed for people with SIBO, because FODMAPs are it's an acronym that stands for basically fermented oligosaccharides, fermentable carbohydrates in the diet. And so by decreasing the intake of these fermentable carbohydrates, you can decrease the symptoms of SIBO, because there's no carbohydrates basically for the bacteria to ferment and cause the gas, and that causes the bloating, the constipation, and the diarrhea.
There's nothing for them to feed on, so they'll die off faster as well. All right, so now you mentioned antibiotics, and if we go to a doctor, they'll most likely prescribe an antibiotic to treat SIBO, but some studies do show that SIBO is sometimes difficult to treat medically. Are there any natural supplements that will work as well to treat SIBO? And if so, can you give us kind of an overview of which ones would be most suitable? And then we can kind of get into some detail of each.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, antibiotics don't always work, and also for some people, rifaximin, which is the most common antibiotic prescribed, it can be very expensive as well for patients. So looking into natural antibiotics such as peppermint and oregano, natural remedies such as peppermint and oregano is something that some practitioners prescribe or look into. Peppermint is helpful because it has natural antispasmodic properties. It's easy to take. You can take it in form of tea. You can take oils or capsules. And studies have shown that enteric cover-coated peppermint oil has shown good improvement in reducing hydrogen production in SIBO patients. Peppermint may also relieve the bloating, the constipation, and abdominal discomfort in patients with SIBO. Oregano is also a sort of a natural antimicrobial that has also been used in SIBO. It inhibits the growth of bacteria, and it has been used to treat chronic overgrowth issues in SIBO patients.
Wow, so peppermint and oregano. So great to know. And you have some really great blogs that I'll post below to both of those as well, if you want to understand more about both of those. And have there been any studies done on these herbal antimicrobials versus like the typical pharmaceuticals that are used to treat SIBO, to see which one is more effective in the bacterial eradication process?
Sure. A landmark study in 2014 showed that herbal therapy is equivalent to rifaximin, which is the gold standard antibiotic used to treat SIBO. And the studies show that, taking herbal supplements in SIBO patients may be as effective as taking the antibiotic rifaximin in these patients. The response rate of the patients, so that meaning that they get a normal hydrogen breath test, was 46% for the herbal therapies and 34% for rifaximin. So that's really good data for herbal antibiotics. And so patients that don't respond to rifaximin or cannot use rifaximin for whatever reason, I know for a lot of patients, cost is an issue because it's not always covered with insurance. And so herbal supplements, can be used as a form of rescue therapy. However, more studies need to be done to validate this or explore other alternative cures for patients with SIBO. But there's a lot of practitioners who use these herbal microbials and have seen good results.
Interesting. I mean, I don't know a lot about medications and all that, but the little I do know, it's always seemed counterintuitive to use an antibiotic for a gut issue, because antibiotics, don't they kill everything, like the good and the bad? And then wouldn't that kind of leave an opening for, like, let's say there's a couple bad left over, they could grow faster?
Yeah, that's right. So that's also an issue, for some patients taking antibiotics. They're concerned about having a rebound overgrowth and that sort of thing, taking antibiotics. And there's certainly taking the probiotics, and maybe we'll talk about that as well, could help in that case. And then if the SIBO recalls, going to herbal therapy as a rescue therapy might also be helpful.
Understood. So yeah, the probiotic you could kind of balance if you're taking the antibiotic. And so can probiotics actually help with SIBO treatment? Have there been studies showing its effectiveness, or would it just be something good to take if you go the antibiotic route to kind of balance the gut after you've kind of killed off everything?
Yeah, so it does seem kind of counterproductive, right? I mean, you're trying to get rid of the bacteria and then you're putting in more bacteria with the probiotics. But the thought with using probiotics is they can help to reestablish a healthy microbiome in patients with SIBO by replacing the SIBO-causing bacteria with healthier bacteria and promoting GI motility. I will say this is an area of controversy. So you will find some practitioners saying, okay, no probiotics, and you find some practitioners saying, yes, use probiotics. There have been studies looking at all the studies called meta-analysis, showing that probiotics can help SIBO symptoms and reduce hydrogen production in certain patients. And it can also help to restore the natural state of the gut flora. And this could certainly lead to a major improvement in GI symptoms and improve SIBO symptoms in this patient. But the thing about probiotics is that there are many strains of probiotics. So taking the right strain is important. And the lactobacilli and the bifidobacteria have been found to be effective in providing relief to SIBO and IBS patients who have symptoms. So, and like I said before, just adding the antibiotics and probiotics together can result in higher response rates with just giving the patients antibiotics without any probiotics.
Interesting. So there are specific probiotics that you would kind of want to focus on, since there are so many strains for somebody that has SIBO. And do you have any other type of advice or guidance around choosing the right probiotic for SIBO specifically?
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from looking at the lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, you want to look for a probiotic that has those strains in them. You also, want to make sure that you're getting your probiotics from a high quality a high quality company that that you're sure that they validated the probiotics, they're produced on the CGMP conditions, and you're sure that if they say this amount of probiotics is in there, it's in there. So just make sure you're getting it from a reputable company.
And
And
have you developed your own, I didn't check this out. Do you have your own line of probiotics that you have on your website?
yes, we do have a line of probiotics. We have a probiotic and prebiotic combo. Most prebiotics are not are oligosaccharides, which are not good for people on the low FODMAP diet. So our prebiotics and are not oligosaccharides. They are low FODMAP certified. So they don't they don't cause intestinal issues like bloating, which you would probably get with something like FOS, which is the oligosaccharides that most prebiotics have. So our probiotic and prebiotic combo is safe for people who are on the low FODMAP diet, safe for people on SIBO. The one thing that we always say, is, first of all, like I said, practitioners have different philosophies regarding using probiotics. So you want to, go with your clinician's philosophy. And then you also want to do a testing, because probiotics, it's sort of individualized to everybody. So, something that you might respond to is different from something someone else might respond to. So generally the guidelines are to do testing for a couple of weeks, see how you feel, if it's helping you, if you're improving, and then if you are, you can continue taking it, and if not, you stop, pretty much.
Thank you for making that point, because it's so important to understand that there's no one size fits all. Everybody's body's different, and that's why it's important to work with somebody who understands that as well, and that can kind of tailor the treatment to what your specific situation, your specific body needs. You had mentioned oregano oil, how it can help with bacterial infections and with SIBO. What's the criteria for how to use oregano oil for SIBO?
Yeah, yes, exactly. It has natural antibacterial properties, and so it can help, act as a natural antimicrobial. It can also help in reducing abdominal pain and inflation. The oregano oil has been found to be helpful in that. You could take it as a capsule or add maybe 50 milligrams of oregano oil to water each day. Some people have found using oregano oil topically diluted with a carrier oil can help to ease symptoms.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and patients also sometimes take capsules, 50 milligrams, 4 to 6 times a day. Again, I would urge patients to talk to their practitioners or their clinicians as to how best to incorporate oregano oil to their SIBO therapy.
Absolutely. And just an FYI for everybody listening, you have a great blog with a lot of great information on oregano too, and I'll post that below. Now, we've talked about a little bit about FODMAPs throughout our conversation. Can you walk us through what FODMAPs are, how they can worsen SIBO, and how can a low FODMAP diet and FODMAP digestive enzymes help those with SIBO?
Yeah, absolutely. So FODMAPs it's an acronym for fermentable oligo, that's the O, monosaccharides and polyols. And that's quite a mouthful, but basically they're just yeah, right. They're just basically fermentable sugars that in some people are not digested. And then instead of being digested in people with, SIBO and IBS, they're fermented by the bacteria in the small intestine. And what happens is that there's more fermentation, there's gas production, and this will lead to the symptoms of SIBO, so abdominal pain, bloating, and diarrhea. So what the low FODMAP diet seeks to do is to restrict these carbohydrates so that you are basically starving the harmful bacteria. They don't have anything to ferment, and so you can reduce symptoms of SIBO.
Got it. Yeah, it's such an interesting you know, thing to understand because I didn't know anything about FODMAPs until I started diving into this. So, and you have this incredible line of low FODMAP spices and different types of sauces and foods. So, that's exciting because apparently they're quite difficult to find, really clean, non, you know, preservative added, GMO added, um, types of FODMAP food. And what is kind of the basic criteria of a low FODMAP diet? What types of food would be included and excluded?
So, for anyone starting on the low FODMAP diet, I would, recommend you get the Monash app or the FODMAP friendly app because they have the serving sizes of foods per meal, so they're very helpful for that. And they're more reliable than just using low FODMAP lists on the web. So that's the first thing I would say, because that's a mistake a lot of people make, and they get confused because they see something here and they see something there, and they don't know which food they're allowed to eat or not. The Monash app and the FODMAP friendly app, those are the only companies that are doing the testing, and so they're the most reliable. They're the only reliable sources out there, pretty much. Um, so um, so it's like you said earlier on, you can garlic and onions are FODMAPs. They have FODMAPs, and that's one of the most problematic thing for people on the diet because garlic and onions are in everything, even where you think they shouldn't, they're not, right?
Yes.
So so those are high FODMAP. Also, wheat-based products are also high in FODMAPs, but not because of gluten. They're high in FODMAPs because of fructans. And so some people that actually think that they have gluten intolerance might not have gluten intolerance. They might actually have intolerance to the fructans in wheat and some other grains that are basically the same as the gluten grains, pretty much. So they react to the gluten, they react to gluten, or they think they react to gluten, but they're actually reacting to the fructans in the wheat. Then the other dairy also has FODMAP. Lactose is a FODMAP. So avoiding milk or using lactase that you might find in enzymes to digest milk could be helpful, or drinking plant-based milks. And then beans and processed beans and meats and proteins are generally okay as long as they don't have flavorings that have garlic and onions. Fruits are also an issue. So some people might notice that, for example, when they eat apples, or like my son, he eats apples, he gets gas, and that's because of the FODMAPs in apples. So the fructose basically in apples, and also some sweeteners are also an issue. Basically, the sweeteners that end in "all," except for erythritol, even though erythritol also causes issues if you take too much of it with digestion. So even if it doesn't have FODMAPs, one would avoid it. But generally, the sweeteners that end in "all" an issue, and you should avoid that. So now, enzymes could help you with, if for example, you're going to be eating a high FODMAP food, or that you ate a high FODMAP food. Taking an enzyme could help to alleviate the symptoms by breaking up some of these FODMAPs. So we do have a FODMAP and digestive enzyme, which is product, which is very comprehensive, contains a wide variety of enzymes, one of the widest on the market. And so we basically you're covered with most FODMAPs. And while we don't, encourage people to, I guess, experiment, or, say, oh, well, I'm going to eat a whole bunch of FODMAPs on and on, for as a sort of cheat, and then I'll be taking digestive enzymes to help. they can help when you on occasion when you eat products that have high FODMAP foods, or when you've done it by mistake, or when you're going to do it, and just to make sure you don't get symptoms from the FODMAPs in the foods.
Right. Well, it's great to know there's something that you guys have that can help. Because it sounds like for people that do have SIBO, it's going to be very difficult to eat out.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. That's you're so right about that. That's one of the issues that people. I mean, that's the other thing. Like you eat out, or even if you eat in a friend's house, you don't always know what they're going to have, right? They don't give you an ingredient list. So
Yeah.
even if you say, well, I don't eat garlic and onion, it could have garlic and onion. So
Yeah. But seasonings and sauces, I mean, it's in everything, I feel like. Now, in your approach, do you feel it's possibly a better option to stick to natural remedies in, like oregano oil for bacterial infections like SIBO, than to go the pharmaceutical route first? Or does it really depend on each person's body? Are there kind of pros and cons to each?
yeah, there are pros and cons to each. I do agree with you. I think it depends on each person's body. I would. For some people, the herbal oregano oil, for example, and herbal supplements are more effective. For some people, antibiotics are more effective. Some people take antibiotics and they sort of fail antibiotics. They fail the antibiotics and SIBO recurs, and so they try herbal supplements and vice versa. So it's really important to work with your clinician to determine which treatment option works for you. And again, and like I said before, also for some people, the cost of rifaximin, the antibiotic, is too high, and so they elect to start with herbal therapies first.
And this antibiotic you said normally is not covered by insurance.
Some people's insurance does not cover it, so it's so what I've seen with the patients is that sometimes some insurances cover it and some don't. So it really depends on your insurance and what they think about it. I think there's some sort of discrimination with SIBO, but that's just my theory as to why they don't cover it necessarily.
Right, because there's probably a lot of money to be made off of SIBO, like over the years. That's a whole nother topic. Can you share with us, because this you touched on the supplement industry like briefly earlier on. Can you share with us what we need to kind of know about selecting the right supplements? How do we kind of navigate the supplement industry? And also, as we've talked throughout the show, you have a line of high-grade supplements and foods. Can you share with us more about those as well, and what types of supplement formulations that you have specifically, just the categories for those suffering with SIBO?
Yeah. So there are lots of supplements on the market. And one important thing to know about supplements is that they're not regulated like drugs are by the FDA. So you need to make sure that you are getting your supplements from a reputable company, and a company that follows science and evidence. And that's what we do at Casa de Sante. We only sell evidence-based supplements where studies have shown that they could be helpful for people with IBS and SIBO. And all our supplements are low FODMAP. And so we have all these, because if there was a study, I think it was last year or so a while ago, that showed that a huge proportion of the medications and supplement out there have food in things that people are intolerant to, like lactose, for example, like lactose and gluten and other high FODMAP ingredients. And so we make sure that all our ingredients are low in FODMAP, and they're tested in Australia and certified to be low in FODMAP. So you have that confidence when you take any of our products that you're not going to make your symptoms worse. We have a wide range of products to support people with SIBO, starting from the antibiotics and the multivitamins. We have probiotics, we have digestive enzymes, and we have protein powders. as well as seasonings, very important, low FODMAP seasonings, no onion or garlic, very hard to find on the market. And so we have a wide range depending on what your symptoms are, what you need to take care of with your SIBO, and we were happy to talk to anyone as to what is best for their particular condition. But we have ours. We're just making sure that we're supporting people with SIBO in terms of their nutrients requirements, as well as products to help them alleviate their symptoms and feel better.
Yeah, and I took a look at your spices, and it's, it's all natural. There's no preservatives, there are no tricky words you can't understand or can't, verbalize. So it's a really great line. So anybody that's has SIBO and struggling with that and still want to season your food, that's a pretty incredible line of seasonings. Now, for those who want to contact you and check out your products and services, how can you do so? And can you share with us also what types of programs you have available? Because now you have this online service as well. So how does that work, and what kind of programs are involved?
Sure. So we have our website, which is casadesante.com. You can get resources about the low FODMAP diet, about IBS and SIBO on our website. We have guides. I mean, if you're starting the low FODMAP diet, because it can be complicated, it's got it's got the elimination, the reintroduction, and the maintenance phase, and just understanding that and making sure that you are doing it properly can be challenging for some people. So we have a video course, a free video course that people might find helpful. It helps you shows you what is low FODMAP, what is not, how to cook, and what to make, how to cook. If you are low FODMAP and the others in the family are not low FODMAP, it helps you with putting together a meal plan. So that's a really free handy resource for people who are on the low FODMAP diet. We also have but for people who have more specific questions and you want some help in going through the process, we have programs. We have a dietitian care plan where you can meet with a dietitian for a personalized plan, and you get ongoing and high touch interactions with a dietitian and a health coach. So almost every week you're either talking to your dietitian or you're talking to a health coach, and they're guiding you through the process. We also have an integrated care plan that includes a GI clinician. So that's a little bit more intensive as well. You get to talk to a GI clinician, to get any labs that you need if you need to be diagnosed, or if you need if you've had issues with being diagnosed, or you really don't know what's going on and you need that additional diagnosis and maybe even some prescriptions. So we have another integrated care track that you could talk to a GI clinician, and then also a dietitian and a health coach. Now, what we understand the issues that people with IBS and SIBO face. We understand that, it's not something in your head. We understand it can be very debilitating. We understand that you have a lot of questions, and it's not something that you can do in like a 15 minutes office visits, like so many physicians these days and clinicians are these days. You just don't necessarily have the time. So we make sure that you have that time, you have that support, and you have that that personalized touch to help you resolve your IBS and SIBO symptoms. And if you just have a question, you can set up an appointment with one of our dietitians and talk to a dietitian or a health coach. If you need help in staying on plan. So we have a number of resources as well that on our website, recipes and articles, blog posts, and articles, tips, and information on how to navigate SIBO, IBS, and the low FODMAP diet.
So comprehensive. Thank you for creating this, because people out there really struggle with, finding doctors that are really specialize in this specifically or even know much about it. So to have somebody like you, this is what you and your team focuses on, and you stay up to date on all the upcoming or all the new research and the new information, and you're specifically focused on this. I mean, that's so helpful for people that are struggling with this difficult issue on a regular basis.
Yeah. We understand how difficult the struggle can be, and we're committed to helping them overcome the struggle and get relief from SIBO.
Well, I'll post links below, so anybody listening can contact you and check out your products and supplements and programs. And thank you so much for joining me today and sharing with us your knowledge and expertise around gut health and SIBO. And thank you for all the work and research you're doing as well to help your clients through evidence-based lifestyle approaches to help manage these chronic gut issues. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm really delighted to have the chance to talk to you and talk to your audience. Thank you.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And a reminder, I am not your doctor, so please don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your healthcare, feel free to reach out to your practitioner. If you like this video, please like and share with others. This information could really help someone you may know. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to be sure you don't miss out on our future shows. And I will see you all next Wednesday on the next episode of Discovering True Health.